In the heart of the old city of Bell Hollow, past the leaning rooftops, crooked alleyways, and chiming chapel bells, there stood a peculiar little shop. It had no name above the door, no sign, and no windows. But everyone knew it, because every day at exactly 3:03 p.m., a bell would chime from inside. It was not the heavy toll of church bells, nor the hollow clang of street clocks. It was a soft, melodic sound, like the ring of a teacup set gently upon a saucer, and it signaled that the clockmaker had completed another timepiece. The clockmaker, whose real name was Elion Ray, was a man made of silence and secrets. He wore a long brown coat, gold-rimmed spectacles, and gloves with tiny brass buttons. He walked slowly, spoke rarely, and was never seen eating or sleeping. Children said he could freeze time. Adults said he was simply a genius, but no one truly knew him. What they didn't know, what not even the birds or the wind or the whispering cobblestones knew, was that Elion Ray did not build clocks for time. He built them for memories. Behind his shop, hidden from view, was a walled garden. It wasn't large, nor especially colorful, but it was unlike any garden in the city or the world, because every flower bloomed only when a memory was born. The roses glowed with laughter, the lilies pulsed with sorrow, the tulips opened only when secrets were spoken. And in the very center, standing tall like a guardian, was a tree with silver bark and leaves like tiny mirrored gears. This was the memory tree. Each time Elion finished a clock, he would come to the garden, sit on a bench beneath the tree, and wait. The moment someone, somewhere in the city, used that clock to mark something important, a first kiss, a goodbye, a promise, a birth, the tree would shimmer, a branch would stretch, a petal would fall. And in that moment, Elion would remember the memory, even if it wasn't his. He didn't know how this magic began. It had always been so. He was just its keeper. Until, one day, something changed. Her name was Mara. She arrived on a rainy Tuesday, wrapped in a patchy shawl, her hair matted, her shoes soaked. She was no older than 12. Elion found her sitting on the back step, watching raindrops race down the iron pipes. "You shouldn't be here," he said. She looked up. Her eyes were the color of wet earth. "I followed the sound," she whispered. "It brought me here." He tilted his head. "What sound?" "The one in my dreams. A garden that whispers in gears, a tree that remembers, a man who listens to time." Elion said nothing. Mara stood. "Do you fix broken clocks?" He nodded. She touched her chest. "Then can you fix me?" And she fainted. Mara slept for 3 days in Elion's upstairs loft. When she awoke, she spoke little, but her eyes watched everything. Elion gave her bread, warm socks, and a book of blank pages. She filled it with drawings of clocks with wings, flowers that bled ink, shadows shaped like people. He began to notice oddities. She never shivered in cold. She never blinked at sudden noises. And at night, when all should be quiet, Elion would hear, not from her chest, but from her back, a faint tick, a mechanical, broken tick. He brought out his stethoscope and placed it gently on her back. Tick, 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 clunk, like a gear slipping. He gasped. Inside, was a broken clock. That night, Elion went to the memory tree. He waited for the petals to whisper, but they did not fall. He asked the tulips if they had seen anything in her dreams. They stayed closed. He leaned against the silver trunk and whispered, "What is she?" And the wind brought him an answer, not in words, but in music. The old lullaby he had not heard since he was a child, one sung by a mother with hair like spun silver and a voice like spring rain. He stood. Mara had no ordinary clock within her. She was born from time itself. Somewhere, somehow, she had been built. But for what purpose? And by whom? Elion knew only one being who might know, the archivist. High above the city, hidden beneath the oldest cathedral, lived a creature made of parchment, quills, and candlelight. The archivist wrote down every story never told, every event that almost happened, every dream forgotten upon waking. He rarely received visitors, but Elion had once gifted him a clock that kept perfect track of moonlight. So when Elion arrived, the door opened. "You seek the girl," he rasped. Elion nodded. "She is not from here. She is from the moment between seconds, a place no longer mapped." "A clock world?" Elion whispered. The archivist reached into his chest and drew out a scroll sealed with wax. "She is the last of the moment children, made to save the world when its time runs thin, but her gears are broken, her maker lost, and her time is unraveling." There was only one way to save her. Elion had to build a clock that ran backwards, not just to reverse time, but to restore a moment long gone. He called it the rewind clock. He forged its frame from forgotten lullabies. He shaped its hands from promises never broken. He filled its face with glass made from tears of joy. And for the key, he used a single petal from the memory tree, which shimmered with every memory he had ever loved. It took 7 weeks. When it was done, he brought it to Mara's bedside. She looked pale, fading. He opened a small panel in her back and wound the key once, gently. Tick, tick, tick. She gasped, and her eyes glowed. When she opened her eyes, they weren't Mara's anymore. They were gold and full of stars. "I remember now," she whispered. "I was sent to keep the world from losing its moments." "The world forgets too fast," Elion said softly. She nodded. "Without memory, there is no time, only noise." And then the room changed. The loft dissolved. The shop faded. And suddenly, they stood in the moment between seconds, a place made of glass bridges, floating gears, and waterfalls of frozen time. Mara walked forward, touching each floating clock with tenderness. "They are fading," she said. "People don't treasure moments. They chase hours, miss heartbeats. Time is growing thin." "What do we do?" Elion asked. She looked back at him. "You teach them." They returned. Together, Mara and Elion built a new kind of timepiece, not for hours or minutes, but for moments. Each clock they sold came with a single golden note inside. Use this clock only to remember, not when, but why. A mother used it to remember the first time her baby laughed. A baker used it to recall the day he first tasted his grandmother's pie. A little boy used it to remember the sound of his dog's paws on the stairs. And with each use, the garden bloomed. The memory tree grew stronger, and time, real, heartfelt time, became richer. One night, Mara stood in the garden, her cloak shimmering like dusk. "My time here is done," she said. Elion's heart ached. "You're leaving?" she said. "I was never meant to stay, but I will always be near, in every remembered laugh, every hand held tight, every tear cried for love." She placed a tiny clock in his hand, shaped like a flower. "For you, when you need to find me." And then she stepped into the bark of the memory tree and was gone.